Hello everyone, my name is Nikhil and in this video I will be teaching you the Redux and I will take you from very beginner level to the advanced level. So first we will dive into the basics of the Redux and we will build a counter application, and then we will move on to the bigger project where we will create a shopping cart application, and the whole cart data will be then fetched via the Firebase, and then we will manage the shopping cart logic with the Redux state management tool, which is a central data store, and then we will fetch all of the things from the HTTP request, and then we will try the Thunk pattern as well. So let's start. So now please like the video if you are new to the channel, and please subscribe as well so that the more people can see this video and I will create more videos like this. So now let's dive into the basics of the Redux.
So right now about the Redux, so there are some basic requirements for the React Redux application. So you should have the basic knowledge of how the React works, and now we will see about some terminologies in the Redux. So first, Redux. So Redux is a state management tool which helps us to manage the complex states, and with the help of Redux we can create a CDS, which is exactly the central data store, which help us to manage the whole data store in just one store. So the whole state can be managed in just one data store. So about the reducers, so about the reducer functions, they manages the state and returns the newly updated state. So they are actually the functions which manages the states in the Redux, and there are some actions which is a part of the reducer function, which is actually the parameter in the reducer function. So they have the two properties of type, and then it is a payload property. So the type property has a unique identifier in it, and the payload property has the data in it. And about the dispatch, so the dispatch is created whenever we want to send an event data. So whenever an event occurs, whenever we want to send the data to the Redux, so we have to use the dispatch function to send the actions to update the data. So these are about the basic terminologies in the Redux. So now we will create the React Redux application to build the counter application in the project. So I have created a basic React application here, and you should also create it from the command npx create -react -app, and then the app name. I have given the app name as the React Redux, so you can also give any name to this. And then we need to go inside the directory, and then we need to install two libraries of the Redux, which is the npm install, and the first library is the Redux itself, and then there is also a library with the React. It will be the react-redux. So we have to install these two also. So we have to wait till it completes the installation in that. And now packages are now installed. So now we have to go to inside the React Redux application from here also. And now we need to create the store inside the source folder. So the store will contain all the state management tools. So we have to create a new folder. It will be the store. And then we have to create an index.js file in the store, index.js. And now we have to handle all of the React states in just single index.js file. So now first we have to import the Redux. So it will be the import, and then the function will be the create store from the Redux. And then we need to create here the store. So the const store will be equals to the create store, but now the create store needs a reducer, so we have to create a reducer function also, as we have talked in the PPT. So it will be the const reducer function will be equals to an arrow function, and this will contain a state and action as the parameters. So the state is a state which we will provide, and the action will have two properties in that. The first is the type and the payload, which we have discussed in the PPT. So now in the reducer function, if I will not define nothing here, and then if I will not define the create store as the reducer function in that, so now the store is now created, and then we can use the store. So now for the state, now if I will not give an initial value to the state as an object, so it will contain a counter and the value will be the 0. So now the state has a counter property with the 0 value inside that. So now we have to handle the state here. So now if I will now create a counter in the app.js file, and for using the store, we need to go to the index.js, which is the root file, and then we need to provide here the store. So we have to provide the store to the whole application which contains in the application. So the app component will be the main application component, and it will contain the store. So all of the components will have access to the React store, which is this index.js file. So we have to provide that now in the index.js. So we need to import here the import it will be the provider from the React Redux. So the provider will provide a store, and then we can wrap a whole app component of the React with the provider. So the provider will be now from the React until the strict mode ends. So there will be the provider, and now the provider will contain a prop which is the store, and then the store we need to provide the store which is in the which we have to export the store. So then we have to export here the store also, export default store from here. And now we need to import the store in the index.js. So it will be the store, so it will be imported from the store application from this index.js, and now we have given the store. So now the app component have access to the store, and now we need to handle the state, and then we need to show the state. So in the app.js, if I will now go here, if I have to remove from the header till the header, and then I will remove the class name app also from here, and now we have to add here the h1 tag which is a counter app, and then we can now provide here the counter inside this. And then to get the counter here from the index.js store, now we need to get here in the app.js with the useSelector hook, and the useSelector hook is available in the React Redux. So we need to import the useSelector. If I have to remove the logo, so import the useSelector from the React and the Redux, and then the useSelector will give us an help which we can extract the counter from this index.js store. So it will be useSelector from to the const selector, or like the counter will be equals to the useSelector, and then the useSelector will be the key to get the counter, and now the counter will be done from the useSelector. So we need to provide here a callback function, and the callback function will have the state inside it, and then we have the counter property in the state, so we have to access the state dot counter. So it will be the counter now. So the counter is now actually the counter. So if I will provide another like h2, and inside that if I will provide a counter here, so it will be the counter. So now if I will now save, and if I will now just start the application now, npm start, so now we will see the counter on the screen. So we have to wait till it compiles and it loads to the browser. So now in the browser now, so we have the blank application. So if I will now check the error in the console, that what exactly is the error. So the error is because cannot reach property of the undefined reading counter. So now this error is coming because now in the index.js now we have a store, and in the app.js we are now accessing the counter, but in the reducer function we haven't written anything from the reducer function. So if I will now just return here the counter, or like return here the main state which we have the state inside that. So if I will now save, and if I will now go again, so now you will see the counter app, and the counter is now showing on the screen. So now if I will now give a value of the 10 to the counter, so the 10 will be here. So then you will see we have the state of the 10 here. Now we will create here some reducer functions inside that. So now I will move on to the app.js, and inside the counter I will create two buttons. Button, the on click will be equals to the like increment, and then the button will be the increment same, and then there will be another, so it will be having the on click, it will be the decrement. So now this will have the text of the decrement, and then we need to create the functions also with the const increment will be equals to a function, and same the const decrement will be equals to another function inside that. So now we have now the increment and the decrements here. So if I will now save, so now you will see two buttons will be here of the increment and the decrement. So now I want this application to be when I will click the increment, so the counter will increase, and when I will click the decrement, the counter should decrease. So for this help, now we need to dispatch an action. And now we have seen in the PPT that how to that what exactly is the dispatch. So dispatch is used whenever we want to send the data to the Redux store. So for the dispatch, we need to import something from the React Redux. It will use dispatch. So the use dispatch function will help us to dispatch an action, and then we have to provide a unique action, and then the Redux store will fetch the action, and then it will update the store. So for that, in the app.js, for the increment. Now if I will now use here the dispatch, and for using the dispatch, first we have to give a variable as the const dispatch will be equals to the use dispatch. So now we are now giving the reference of the use dispatch to the dispatch, so it will be here, so it will be down dispatch, and then in the dispatch we have to provide an action. So for the action, if I will now provide an object for the action, so first it will contain a type property. So the type, if I will provide as the inc increment, and then if I will now save, and then we need to go to the index.js store, and now we have to check if we have the action of the type with the inc, so we have to increment the counter. So now there are some limitations for the React reducer functions. So first they should be the synchronous function, and the second limitation is that we should not mutate the original state. So here we have two limitations, that first it should always be a synchronous function and it should not contain an async code inside that, and we should not mutate this original state, and we are not allowed to do that in the Redux store because it will crash the application. So it should always be a copy of the original state, and the main state should not be updated. So for that I have to create here the, so if I will now use here the if condition, so the if the type equals to the if the action dot type property, which we are now sending there, if the action dot type will be equals to the increment inc, so then we need to create a, here are the new state, and then we need to return the state. Will be the return, it will be like an object with the state property, and the state will equals to the counter, state will be equals to the state dot counter, which we have here, and it will be plus plus. So then we need to return here the state object, which will be equals to the state dot counter plus plus. So now if I will use the counter as the 0, start from the 0, and then if I will now save, so then you will see if I will now click on the increment, so actually there is an error I think, so we have to fix that. So the error is coming because we are now sending the state, and now we are now using here the counter property, so we have to send here the counter. So instead of the state we need to send here the counter. So if I will now save again, and if I will now click on the increment, I think the counter plus plus is not here. So if I will now add here this as the counter plus 1, and then you will see it will increment the state. So then you will see the counter will increment now the state. So these are about handling the state in that. So here we are now sending a dispatch action, and action is the inc, and here we are fetching the same action here inc if the action dot type equals to the inc. So we have to return the counter state, and the counter state will be the state dot counter plus 1. So these are handling the states in the Redux. And now if I will now use here the decrement state, and for the decrement we need to send here another dispatch. So it will the dispatch, and then the action type will be equals to now the decrement, so it will be the dec. So then we need to handle the dec in that. So we have to create one more if statement, if action dot type property will be equals to the decrement. So then we have to copy, we have to return the copied state counter will be equals to the state dot counter minus 1. So if I will now save again, so then you will see so it will be incremented, and once I will create decrement, so it will be decremented the original state. So these are about handling the counter app in the React and the Redux. And now if we have to send there some data to that, if I will now add here one more thing, like in the app.js, if I will now add here another button inside that button, and the button will be the add, and it will be the value, and the add value, if it will be the 10, like it will be the on click, like it will be the add by. So we have to create another function as the add by, const add by used to the another function, and this will contain a dispatch action, and the dispatch action will be equals to the type property, and the type property will be equals to the like the add. And then if I will now provide here the payload also, so the action is an object with the type and the payload property. So if I would provide here the payload, so it will be like the 10, and then you will see, so it will be the add by 10. So if I will now save, and if I will now move on to the, so it will be in the payload, payload will be equals to the 10. So now we need to go to the index.js store. So it will be the if now the action dot type will be equals to the add. So then we need to return here the copied state again. So it will be equals to the counter will be equals to the state dot counter. It will be plus, and now we have the action property, and now we have the payload property also in the action. So it will be the action dot payload. So if I will now save this action dot payload, so if I will now save this and if I will now move on to the application now. So once if I will now click at the increment, so increment is working, decrement is working. So if I will click add by 10, so then you will see add by 10 is also working. So now we are sending the data from the main app.js to the Redux store. So this is about the basic application with the React and the Redux. So now we have created the application, and now there is one more way to do the Redux part, and which is the Redux Toolkit. So if I will now move on to the Google Chrome, now if I will now search for the Redux Toolkit, do the Redux Toolkit, so then you will see which will help us to manage the complex state and with the batteries included. Like it will have the functions in that which will help to mutate the state, and then which will help us to manage the automatically created the actions identifier. So we don't need to send the actions like the hard-coded actions we are now providing from the like the decrement, the add, the increment, and then the Redux toolkit handle all the reducer functions inside that, and we can create the reducer functions here, and then we can directly call the reducer functions from the main applications. Now if we have to use the Redux toolkit, then we need to click on the get started here, and then if you will click on the documentation, so then you will see first it will be the npx create react app. So it will directly install the Redux toolkit in that, and if we are using an existing app, then we can use the npm install redux.js toolkit. And then what is included here, so first it will be the configure store, which will wrap the create store to provide the simplified configuration options, and the create reducers, actions, slices. And about the slices, it accepts an object of the reducer functions, and then we can call directly these objects from the main applications like from the app.js or anything. It contains a slice name and an initial state value, and it automatically generates a slice reducer which corresponding action creators. So these are known as the action creators. So they automatically create an action identifiers and then pass to the reducer functions. So this will help us to do the all of the things very easily. And then it has a big advantage that here we can mutate the state. So we should not mutate the state anyways, but it will help us because the Redux toolkit uses a new package which is immer, which will help us to mutate the state, and then it automatically identifies that which state has been changed, and then it will send an automatically created copy of the state to the main applications. So it will help us to mutate this. So now we need to use this application with that. So first if I will now move on to the main application here, if I will now close the server, and then we need to install this Redux toolkit. So it will be the npm install Redux toolkit. So we have to click this, and then we have to paste this here. So now you will see it will be installed in a moment, and now the Redux toolkit is now installed, and now we can just remove all of the things from the index.js now from this, and now we have to build from the scratch. So it will be the first the import. We have to import the configure store, GURE store. From it will be from the Redux toolkit. So at the Redux toolkit, Redux.js toolkit, and then we need to now configure the store, and then we have to import a create slice from there, and this will be the slice. So it will be imported, and now we have to create a slice. So first it will be the const counter slice, which will be equals to the create slice function, and then it will contain an options with that. So first it will contain the name of the slice. So the name of the slice here will be the counter, and then it will contain the initial state, and initial state will be equals to like the counter will be equals to like 0, and then it will contain the reducers, and the reducers will be an object which will contain the functions. So first function which we have is the increment, so it will be the function there, and then it will be the decrement, so it will also be the function, and then there will be the add by, so it will also be the function, and they are exactly the reducer functions. So they will contain the state and the actions inside that, state and the action. Here also state and the action, and here also the state and action. So first it will be in the increment. So then we can return here this like, or we can directly return here the mutated state. So we can directly mutate the state here. It will be the state dot counter, it will be the +1. So we have to do this, and now same for the decrement, state dot counter will be equals to the -1, or like directly doing this. And then we can create here the add by, so it will be the state dot counter will be +10, so it will be equals to the +10. So if I will now save, and then we need to create a configure store with that, so it will be the const store will be equals to the configure store, which we will do this, and then it will contain, so first we have to provide here an object, and it will contain a property of the reducer, and then we can provide here directly the counter reducer, like it will be the counter slice dot reducer. So if I will now save, we have to just here export the counter slice action, so it will be the export, it will be the const actions will be equals to the counter slice dot actions. So now the actions which we are writing here will be now exported, and then it will be imported in the main app.js file. So if I will now save, and if I will now move on to the index.js, the main app.js, sorry, so it will be the like import. First we need to import here the actions, so it will be the actions from the store, from it will be like the from the store, and the actions index. So now the actions will be now imported, and now we have to just accept the, instead of this decrement, the type. So now the hard-coded values will not be here, so we can now just directly call the actions dot increment. So the increment will be called whenever we click on the increment, and same for the decrement. So here it will be the actions dot decrement. So here the decrement will be called, and here the same thing which will provide, we can call here the add by actions dot add by, and then we can provide here any value, as we can provide here the payload to this property, and the action will automatically be created from that. So it will be the 10, and then if I will now save, and if I will now just restart the application, npm start, so the application will be now started. So now there is one error, that module build failed because we are now providing an equals to sign the object. We have to give here the colon, so it will be an initial state, and the counter will be equals to 0. So if I will now save, and I should see if there are more errors. So there are more errors, as the export default imported as store was not found in that. So first we need to get here like the actions will be there, and the store. So we have now to export the default store also, export default and will the store. So if I will now save again, so I should see it should be the compiled. So there is another error, so we have to get this like expected an assignment call of the function, so an expression index.js store. Here we don't have to just give a hard-coded value. So if I will now provide the plus, and here also plus, and here, so here it will be the minus, and here if I will now provide the state.counter plus equals to, it will be the plus action, so it will be the payload. So if I will now save with that, so then I think there is a one more error, expected an assignment inserts our inspection. So there should also be anything like that, plus equals to will be that. So if I will now save again, so now you will see it is now compiled because it doesn't need any hard-coded value. So if I will now save, and if I will now go to that, so now you will see it will contain the same application. So if I will now click on the increment, so then you will see increment is done, decrement is creating. So if I will now click on the add by 10, so then you will see the add by 10 is also working. And if I will now provide here the dynamic value of the app like the 20, so then you will see it will be increased by the 20. So if I will refresh, add by 10, so it will be increases by the 20. So this is the basic React application with the Redux functionalities, and it contains all the functionalities of the Redux and all the fundamental concepts of the Redux, which are most important if you are building a real world application.
So now we have built the basic counter application with using the Redux and the ReduxJS toolkit, and now we will move ahead with the larger application. So I have created a basic structure of this application which you can download or clone this repository using the git, and then you can run the npm install command to install the node modules, and this will be the application which we will be building. So first it will be having a login screen, and then if I will now click on the login button, so the state will be updated into the Redux, and then the shopping cart application will be shown, and I'm handling the cart state into the Redux stores, and then I'm sending the data to the backend to the Firebase, and then we will handle the HTTP states via the notification as well, like sending the cart data. So if I will click on the add to cart, now you will see now we have a notification of the request sent successfully, and once I will click on this again, so then you will see request sent successfully again. And even if there is an error, so everything will be shown into the notification as well. And for these products, and I'm using a dummy products array to be displayed onto the screen, and the whole state of the application, including the cart items, the total price, and the login logout screen, is handled with the Redux dynamically and with fetched with the Firebase. So isn't it interesting? So let's dive into this project. And now I have a sample static project for this application, and we need to get this application by going to the GitHub. So we have a Redux demo here, and then we need to select the branch. So branch will be the starting app for the starting project. So we have here the branch, and then we have to copy this URL from there. So we have to copy this URL from the code, and then we have to clone this project here. So we need to create a new folder here as the shopping app. So it will not be inside the my app, so it will be in the shopping app. And then we need to go inside the shopping app from the command prompt, so here, and then we can go inside it, and then we can run the command as a git clone and then the URL. So once it will be completed, it will be cloned into the shopping app. So now you will see it is now cloned, and now we need to go inside this application, the Redux demo, and then we need to go to the branch of the starting app. So it will be the git checkout, and it will be the branch name. So the branch name will be the starting app, and then you will see it will be switched to the starting app branch here, and then you will see we have here the source, and then we have some components as the auth, and then we have a cart component, we have the cart item, we have the header, we have the layout, we have the product, and then we have here the store application also, and then we have the app.js. So then we need to just clear the console, clear the command prompt, and then we need to run the npm install command to install all of the dependencies. And now we can run the npm start command to start the application. So the application will be started in a moment. So the application is now started, and now once we will go to the Chrome, so then you will see there will be a login screen on the Chrome, and once you will click on the login, and then nothing happens. And once you will go to the app.js, so then you will see we have here the layout which is now commented, and once I will comment the auth component, and if I will just uncomment the layout, so then you will see we have here the layout onto the screen. So we have here the Redux shopping app, we have here some products on the screen, and then we have the cart, and then we have the total. So these are the static values, but now we need to create it dynamic, and now this will be handled in the Redux store, which is the central data store. So we need to fix all of these functionalities then. So first we will work on the auth component. So then when the user will be logged in, and then we need to show user the cart and the shopping list. So now we need to work on the auth component first. So we can create here the central data store by going to the store, and then by creating a new file as the auth slice.js. So it will be the new slice for the Redux. So then I will just minimize this terminal. I will just minimize the file step from there also. So now we can build the functionality of the auth slice. So after creating a auth slice, now we can just create a slice for the auth. So it will be the import, and as the create slice, and it will be imported from the ReduxToolkit, and then we need to just create the slice. So it will be the const as the auth slice, and it will be equals to the create slice function, and then it will contain an object with all of the functionalities. So first property will be equals to the name. So the name of this slice will be the auth, so we can define it as the auth, and the second field will be the initial state. So initial state will be equals to, now it will be a state. Now we can have a state as the is logged in to check the user if the user is logged in or not, and then we can just define here some reducers. So now reducer will contain some functions inside that. So first function will be the login. So it is now the login function, and then there will be the logout function. So now we have the two functions in the reducers, and now we have to build the functionality. So login will contain the state, and then the logout will also contain the state as the parameter. And now here we are allowed to mutate the state because we are using the ReduxJS toolkit and not the Redux or the React Redux. So you should not always mutate the state, but now this library uses the immer package to just mutate and creates a new copy. So we can here mutate the state, so it will be state dot is logged in will be equals to the true here. So this is now mutating of the state, and now in the logout we can just mutate the state at the state dot is logged in equals to the false. So now we have the two functions in the auth slice, and now we need to just export this slice. So first we need to export as the const auth actions. So the actions will be exported as the auth slice we have here, and dot actions. So all of the actions of the auth slice will be now exported. So it will be the export as the named export, and then we need to just export default as the auth slice so that it can be imported in the store, which will be the main store in the index.js. So it will be the default, and then it will be the auth slice. And now we need to import it in the index.js, which will be the main store of the Redux. So first we will import the configure store from the ReduxJS toolkit, and then we need to just build here the store. So it will be the const store will be equals to here the configure store, and the configure store will have an object inside it as the reducers. So the reducer will contain an object this time. So it will be having first the auth reducer, and the auth reducer will contain the auth slice, and the auth slice will be then imported from the auth slice that we have exported as a default. So the auth slice dot reducer. So this is now exported as the reducer of the auth, and then we can just add here for the shopping cart also, but now let's do it for the auth only. So now we can just export here as the default of the store as the export default, and it will be the store. So now if I will now save, so now you will see all of the functionalities of the auth component of the auth state is now completed. And now we need to go to the index.js, which is the main file, which is a root application. So here we can just import the provider, and it will be imported from the React Redux, and then we can just wrap the app component with the provider. So we can wrap the app component with the provider by providing here the state as the provider. First it will be the prop, so prop will be equals to the store, and now we need to import the store from the store of the Redux store. So it will be the provider now. So now you can see the store is now imported, and now we can just grab here the app component, and then we can just close this. So now you will see all of this Redux state store will now be covered into the app functionality, into the app component, which is the main component in which all of the files will be rendered, all of the components will be rendered. So now you can see here we have an error. So the is logged in is not defined in the auth slice.js. So we have to go, and then we have to go to the auth slice. So then you will see the is logged in here. So we haven't defined the is logged in because we haven't defined here the value. So the is logged in value will be equals to as the false. So if I will now save, so now you will see there should not be any error. So now it is compiled, and now we need to go to the app.js, which is the main component, and then we need to grab the state from the store. So it will the const, we need to grab the state from the useSelector hook as we did in the introduction project. So it will be the state name, which is the is logged in, and it will be equals to the useSelector hook, and the useSelector hook will be then imported from the Redux. So it will contain the state as the callback parameter, and then we need to grab the state, the Redux state of the auth, and the state name will be the is logged in. So we need to grab the is logged in state. So this is the state from the Redux, and then this is the name of the state as we have exported in the store here as the auth, and then we need to grab the state name, which is the is logged in. And then if I will now just console.log the value of the is logged in, so now we should see the change onto the screen. So if I will now go to the inspect into the Chrome, and then we should see the value here as the false, because now we have the state of the false. And once I will change the state of it, if I will now go to the auth slice, once I will change the state as the true, so then you will see the state will be shown as the true here. Now we can create here the functionality that if the user is logged in, then we need to show the user the shopping list. So for that, once we will go to the app.js, and then we will see in the layout. So then we can just wrap here the auth component into the expression, and then we can check if the user is not logged in. If the logged in is false, then we have to render the auth component, and if the user is logged in, then we need to show the user the layout. So if it is logged in, and then we can show the user as the layout. So the layout will be there as the component. And if I will now save, because so now the logged in is true, so then it should show us the layout onto the screen. So now you will see it is showing us the layout onto the screen, which is a static layout. And then if the user is not logged in, so if I will now go to the auth slice, so if the user is the false, so the login screen will be shown to the screen. So then we can just give the value as the false here as the default. So we can go now to the auth component from there. So it will be the auth, and then we can change the content by dynamically updating it. So once the form will be submitted, so then we can just create the is logged in as the true. So we can just add here the on submit prop to the form. So the on submit, and then it will be handled at the handle submit. And the handle submit will have a function here, const handle submit will be equals to the function which will contain the e as a parameter, and then it will be the e.prevent default. So the e.prevent default will prevent the browser from sending the data from the form, and it will just prevent the page from the refreshing also. So event.prevent default, and here we can dispatch the actions. So for the dispatching of the actions, we need to create the use dispatch hook. So we need to create the dispatch. So the dispatch will be equals to the use dispatch, and the use dispatch will be then imported from the React Redux. So it will contain a dispatch functionality, and then we need to dispatch some actions. So to the dispatch, and then to dispatch some actions, we can import the auth slice actions, which we have exported into the auth slice. So we can get this. So it will be the auth actions. So it will be then imported from the auth slice, and then auth actions dot the login functionality. So once the user will click on the button of the login, so it will be logged in, and then the layout screen will be shown to the user. So now if I will now just save, and if I will now just refresh the page once again, so now you will see once the user will click the login, so now you will see layout screen will be shown, and it contains a shopping list. So now we have created the auth slice component. If I would now refresh the page, so then you will see the shopping list will be gone, and now the user is now false, is logged in is now false. And once I will click on the login again, so then you will see user is logged in. So now we can see here the functionality, but so here we haven't sent any data to the form, because now this project is only structured to make use of the central data store, and it will only handle the login state of the user, because this state will not be handled by the Redux. So only the login state will be handled. So we cannot send any data to the form, or we can send also, but it will not impact the state. So we have to just work on the login functionality. So now you can see we are now logged into the shopping app, and now we have to work, and then we need to just fix this static data here. So once I will click on the add to cart, so the cart should be updated. We can also increment or decrement the cart items from that. So we have the static products here. So the cart functionality will be built. Then we can create a store for the cart. So it will be the cart slice. So we can create here a new slice as the cart slice. So it will be the cart slice.js. So then we can just import here the create slice from the React Redux. So it will be the create slice, and then we can just create the slice for the cart as the const cart slice, and it will be equals to the create style, and then we can just add here as the object. So first it will contain the name as always. So the name will be containing as a cart, and then the second it will contain the initial state. So here the initial state would be different. So the initial state will contain first the items of the cart. So it will be the items list, and then it will be an array, and then we can just have here the total quantity, and then it will be having by default value of the 0, and then we can have a show cart, and it will be equals to the by default as the false. So once I will click on the cart, so then the cart should be shown. So we have to handle that state also. And now we can just create here the reducer functions. So this will be a complex logic here. So first the reducer function will be containing the add to cart. So once I will click on the add to cart to any product, so the cart should be updated. So it will be the new function here at the add to cart, and then it will be the function, and then there will be also a function for the remove to the cart, remove from cart, and then it will also be the function. And then we can just create a one more function to just create as the set show cart, and then it will be the function again, and then it will contain the state. So we can implement the set show cart first. So it will contain a state, and then we can just add here as the state dot show cart will be equals to the true now. So and then we can just work on the add to cart. So now the add to cart will contain the state and the action as the parameters inside that. So for the action, we can get the data from the user. So once I will click on the add to cart, so this product will be now sent to this reducer function, and then it will update. So now the product will be sent to the add to cart function, and now we need to just create a new item. So with the const as the new item, and new item will be equals to the action dot payload, which we will receive from the add to cart functionality. So the new item is there, and then we need to check if the item is already there, so we can just increase the quantity of that item. So it will be the to check if the item is already available. So for this we need to create the const at the existing item, and it will be equals to like the state dot items list that we have. So the state dot item list, and then we can just call here the find function to find if it has any product for the given condition. So we have to get this item. So first it will the item as the parameter, and then we can just fetch here like if the item which we have, if its id is now equals to the new item dot id, so then we can just fetch that the existing product will be there. And now if the existing product is there, so I will just so if the existing product is now there, so then we can just create here some functionalities like that. So if the existing item is available, so we can just increase the quantity like the existing item that we have dot quantity will be incremented as the quantity plus plus, and then we can just increase the price also like the existing item dot price will be incremented as the plus equals to the new item dot price. So now we are now incrementing the quantity, and the price will be which will be equals to the old price of the existing item and the new price which we are getting, and it will be the same as always from there. So it will be equals to that. And then in the else case where the product is not available inside that, so we can just create here the product. So the else case will be there, and then we can just add here some functionality to it. So then we can just add the product to the list. So it will be the state dot items list dot push. So we can just push a product, and then it will be having an object with the id, and the id will be equals to the new item that we have grabbed dot id, and then it will be having the price which will be equals to the new item dot price which we will get from the components, and then it will contain a quantity, and it will be equals to the 1, because if the quantity will be equals to the 2, then we have to go to the existing item state, and then we can just go, and then we can just grab as the total price. So the total price will be equals to the new item dot price, and then we can just have here the name of the product also. So the name will be equals to the new item dot name. So these fields will be now available into a single product. So it will contain id, the price, the quantity, and the total price will be equals to the new item dot price, and then we can just have here all of the things with the same. So now we have created the add to cart functionality, and now we need to check if the add to cart is working or not. So we can just go, and then we can just here just export the cart as the export const. It will be the cart actions, and it will be equals to the cart slice dot actions, and then we can just export the cart slice, export default as the cart slice. And now we need to use this cart slice into the index.js store. So it will be, there will be the another reducer as the cart. So the cart will be having a cart slice dot, it will be having the reducer of the cart slice. So now we have the two functions in the reducer, which contains the auth and the cart, and the auth contains the reducer of the auth. So now the add to cart functionality is now completed, and now we need to go to the product.js which we have here, which is containing a single product inside that, and it contains the name, id, image, url, and the price. So then we can just grab here the add to cart function from there. So we have here the add to cart function, so we can just add here the on click to it. So the on click will be having a function as the add to cart. So then we can create here the function also inside that. Const add to cart will be equals to the function, and then it will just dispatch some actions. So we need to get the dispatch also as the const dispatch, which will be equals to the use dispatch. So the use dispatch will be then imported from the React Redux, and then we can just call here the dispatch, and then the dispatch will be having the cart actions, which will be imported from the cart slice, and dot add to cart, and then the add to cart will be having a payload. So to send the payload, we can send here the object to it, which will contain the name of the product, and then it will contain the ID of the product, and then it will contain the price of the product. So it will be having a name, ID, and the price. So now we are not adding as the name key equals to the name, because now this is the functionality in the ES6, so it will be gone. So the name, ID, and price will be sent to the add to cart function from the store, and then into the add to cart function. Now we have the ID, name, and the price, and the quantity, and the total price. We are now handling the state only from the Redux store and not from the component store. So this will be handled from there. So once I will click on the add to cart, so the cart items should be populated, and now we can get the cart items here also, but for the just time being, so we can just add here the cons as the cart items will be equals to the use selector, and then the use selector will be imported, and then we can just grab here the state, and then we can just grab here the state dot cart dot items list. So the item list will be then there. So if I will now just console.log the item list here also, so we can check if we have the cart items here. So once I will click on the add to cart, so the add to cart items will be then shown to the cart. So we have to go to the inspect, then console. So we can just, so now we can see we have here the array of 5 items. So once I will click on the add to cart, so then you will see now we have here the add to cart function on that. So then you will see we have the price. We have here the single array onto that, and it is rendering 5 times because we have the 5 products onto that. So we have to get this functionality. I will remove this functionality from here, and then we can just have the functionality in the main app component. So if I will now save, and if I will now just go to the Chrome once again, if I will now clear the console, so once I will click on the add to cart, so now you will see we have a single product in the array which will contain a MacBook, and the price will be equals to like the 50, and the quantity will be equals to the 2, because now we have the 2 quantity over here. So if I will just refresh, and if I will just log in here, so then you will see once I will click on the add to cart, so then you will see we will have here the ID as the 1, we have here the MacBook which is containing the price as the 25, and the quantity will be equals to the 1, and the total price of this MacBook Pro will be equals to the 25. And once I will click on the add to cart again, so then you will see no new product will be added to the array, but only the quantity will be increased, and the total price and the price will be increased. So now you will see the price is now increased as the 50, and the quantity will be equals to the 2. So now we have here the functionality of this. So now we have to see if we can do for the all of the items. So if I will now click on the add to cart for the Lenovo Yoga once again, so now you will see we have the array of the 2 items into the list. So it will contain the array, and then you can see the Lenovo Yoga is also there into this, and the price is equals to the 25, and the quantity is 1. So if I will now click on again onto this, so then you will see the quantity is now incremented to 2. So I have now discovered an error. So if I will now click on the add to cart, so now you will see we have the array of the product, and once I will click again to the same product, so then you will see now we can see here now we have the price equals to the 75, but the total price is equals to the 25. So now it is just opposite of it, because the price should be the 25, because this contains the price of the $25. So the price should be the 25, and the total price should be containing the total price into quantity, which is the 75. So we need to go to the cart slice. Instead of this price, we need to just increase the total price to the new item dot price. So if I will now save, so now you will see once I will click on the login, and once I will click on the add to cart to the one product, so then you will see the price equals to the 25, the quantity is equals to the 1, and the total price 25. Once I will click again, so now you will see the price will be just the 25 same, and the total price will be the 50. So now we have fixed this error. Now we need to see the items onto the cart. So now we need to fix these items, because this is the static items onto the cart.js. So if I will now go to the cart.js, now you will see we have the static items, and the quantity will be equals to the 5. So we need to see how many items we have in the cart as we seen in the array list. So then we need to go to the cart slice again, and then we can just increase the total quantity. In the else part, when we are pushing the items to the array, so we need to increase the total quantity of the cart. So it will be the state dot total quantity of to the items, it will be equals to the plus plus. So if I will now save, Before that, we need to go to the cart.js, and then we can just grab the quantity. So the quantity will be equals to the use selector hooks. So the use selector will grab the state, and then we need to grab the state dot cart dot total quantity. So the total quantity will be shown to the quantity. So if I will now save, so now we should see the quantity onto the screen. So if I will now log in, so then you will see now we have the cart of the 0 items. So once I will click on the add to cart, so now you will see we have the 1 items into the cart. And once I will click on to second product, so now you will see we have 2 items onto the cart. And once I will click on the add to cart for the same product, so now you will see we have here in the cart, but now the cart items is only 2 because now we have only 2 products into the cart. So now we have built the cart item functionality, and now the functionality which is remaining is now we need to show the cart items here. So then you can also see we have the total here also as the 100, but now we will fix that later. So then first we need to build the cart functionality, that how we can see the cart. Now we are in the cart items.js. So it will show us the single cart item, which is id equals to the 1, the price equals to the 2500, and it is equals to the MacBook. So it is just showing onto the single cart. So now we need to fix that. So we can just grab here the state from to the Redux. So it will be the const, so to the cart items, and it will be equals to the use selector hook from the React Redux, and then it will grab the state, and then you get the state dot cart dot items list. So now we have the list of all of the items into that, and now we can just grab here as the state. So then instead of the single li items, so we can just comment it out, or we can just remove that. So we can just grab the cart items which we have dot the map, and it will map every single object into this array. So it will be the first item, it will be the item, and then it will contain here the cart item, which is a single cart item. So we have to just send here the props to the cart item. So the id will be equals to the item which we have dot id, and then it will be having the second prop equals to the price. So the price will be the item dot price we have, and then we have to send here the total equals to the item dot total price, and then we need to send here the name also. The name will be equals to the item dot name. So now all of the things which we want to do, now we have done that, and then we can just wrap this inside the li component also. So we need to wrap inside the li. So the li will be there. So for the every list item, the cart item will be then shown to that. So it will contain the li there. Then we can just close this, and then we can just wrap it inside the li. So now you will see we have the li, and then we can provide here the key to this li, because we are now just rendering the list into that, and each list should contain a key prop. So the key prop can contain the item.id inside that. So if I will now save, so then you will see now we should see the items, but now we are not seeing any items onto the screen because we need to just render these cart items into that. So we need to go to the layout, and then we need to just grab here the cart items which we have. So the cart items will be there after the products. So if I will now save, and the cart items will be then imported here, so then you will see now we have the 2 items into the cart. And once I will click on the del latitude also, so then you will see it is also there into the cart. So now we have the cart, and now we need the functionality that once I will click on the cart icon here, so then only it should show me the cart, and once I will click on it again, so then you will see the cart should be removed. So we need that functionality, and for that we have also built that functionality in that in the cart_slice.js, that set show cart will be equals to the true. So we need to go to the cart item, we need to go to the cart, and then you will see we have the h3. So we should have the onClick prop into h3, and then it will be the show cart function would be there, and then just we can show the cart from this function. So it will just dispatch an action. So const dispatch will be equals to the use dispatch, and then we can just add here the function of the show cart as the const show cart will be equal to the function, and then we can just end here an action. So it will be the dispatch, it will be the cart actions dot, it will be the set show cart. So the set show cart will be there, and then if I will now just save, so then you will see that set show cart will be shown. But now we need to also go to the layout also, and then we need to grab the set show cart. So for that we need to go, and then we need to get here the set show cart as the show cart, and it will be equals to the use selector hook, and then it will grab the state, and then it will grab the state dot cart dot show cart. So the show card will be there, and then we need to only render this cart items when the show card will be equals to the true. So when the show card will be equals to the true, and then only we need to render the cart item. So if I would now save, and if I will now just refresh the page once again to clear the cache and all, and once I will click on the login, so then you will see the cart items equals to the 0. Once I will click on the add to cart, so now you will see the cart items has the 2 items also that, and once I will click on it, so now you will see we have the cart items here. And now once I will click on it again, so then you will see the cart will not be shown here, because now in the cart slice.js we are just only giving the value as the true, and instead of this true we should give the value as the state dot show cart, and it will be the opposite value of the state dot show cart. So if I will now save, so now you will see once I will log in and add to cart here also, so now we have the 2 items. So once I will click on the cart, so then you will see we have the cart here onto the screen, and once I will click on the cart again, so then you will see the cart will be gone. So now we have built the functionality of the cart. And now if I will now click on the cart, so then you will see now we have the 2 buttons here also, to just remove the item from the cart, to just decrease the quantity, and to increase the quantity. So then we can also fix that. So then you will see the quantity is now we cannot see the quantity into that, so we have to see the quantity also. So we need to go to the cart items.js, and then we need to render, and then we need to see how many items we are having here. So then you will see we have the name, the price, the quantity, the total, and then we have here all of the things like that. So we need to go to the cart items, and then we need to send one more prop as the quantity, which we have missed. So the quantity will be equals to the item dot quantity. So if I would now save, so then we should see the quantity. So now you will see the quantity is 1 and 1 to the item. So if I will now click on this again, so then you will see the MacBook has the quantity of 3 and the Lenovo Yoga is 1. So if I will click on the add to cart again, so then you will see the quantity is 2, and the total price is also equals to the 50, because 25 equals to 50. And now we need to work on these 2 buttons here. So then we need to go to the cart item, and then now you will see we have the 2 buttons here onto the cart item. So we can just grab here the on click state of the button, and then we can just increment cart item, and then we can just create here the function for the increment also, and for the decrement also we need to create here the on click, which will be equals to decrement cart items. And then we need to just create here the functions, the const increment function will be equals to there, and then it will be having a const as a decrement cart items will be equals to the function, and then it will be having the function again. So now you will see now we have the 2 functions here, but now we need to build the functionality also into the cart slice for the remove items from the cart, and for that we need to go to the cart slice, and then we need to just work on the remove items from the cart. And now to work on this functionality, now we have one thing, that now we only need the ID to just remove. So for that we need to get this ID. So first it will grab the state, and then it will grab the action. So then we can just grab the ID from the payload. So it will be the const ID of the product will be equals to the action dot payload. So we will send the ID in the payload, and then we can just check if we have the existing item into the state. So for that we can just check the const existing item will be equals to the state dot items list dot, it will be the find. So we will find the item if we have the item already available onto the state, and then we can just decrease the quantity. So if we have the item as the item dot id is equals to the id, so it will check if the id is there, and then it will just return here the value. So we can check if the existing item dot quantity will be equals to the 1. So if the quantity is now equals to only 1, so we can just remove the items from the quantity, and to remove that we can just create a new state at the state dot item list will be equals to the state dot item list. So we need to remove from the array, and for that we will use the filter here. So for the state dot item list dot filter, so we will just filter this array of the list. So item will be there as the parameter, so we can just filter as the we only want the items which have the id. Item dot id will not be equals to this id, so we want only these items onto this item list. So it will just filter the array, and it will just show on to the user. So if I will now just save, here from that. So then you will see now we have the quantity equals to the 1, or else if the quantity is now greater than the 1 onto this find method, if the quantity is greater in the existing item, so we can just decrease the quantity, like the existing item dot quantity will be equals to the minus minus, so the quantity will be decreased, and then we can just decrease the total price also, like the existing item dot total price will be equals to the like minus equals to the existing item dot price. So then now we can see the functionality here, right? So if I will now save, so now we should see the functionality onto that, and then we need to go to the cart item.js, which we have here, the single cart item, and then we can just grab here some functions. Like first we will grab the dispatch and the const dispatch. Now we will dispatch the action from the use dispatch, and then just we can create here the dispatch functionality onto the increment. So the dispatch we will just increment again as the auth actions, like the cart actions, it will be dot add to cart, and the add to cart will be there as the same as we did in the product.js. so it will have the name, id, and the price again. So it will be having a name, id, and the price, which we are also getting into that, and then we can just dispatch the section. So if I will now save, and if I will now just go to the Chrome, if I will now log in, so then you will see, if I will now click on the add to cart, now we have 1 items into the cart. And now if I will now increment the quantity, so then you will see now we have the 5 quantity. And once I will click on the plus increment again, so then you will see now there is an error, I think, onto the screen, so we have to fix that error. So then you will see for the minus icon we are now sending the increment, so for that we need to send the decrement, and for the increment we need to send the increment. So it is just changed. So if I will now just save, and if I will now refresh the page again to see if there would be any change, so then you will see once I will add to cart, I have added 3 to 4 items here. So then you will see we have the 4 items of the $25. So once I will click on the increment, so then you will see the quantity is now incrementing, and the total price is also incrementing over there. So if I will now click on the Lenovo Yoga also, if I will now click on the increment, so then you will see the quantity is incrementing. And once the quantity, and now we need to work on the decrement also, and for the decrement we need to grab here the dispatch, the cart actions. So the cart actions will be there, and dot remove the cart, and then we need to remove the cart from only the id. So if I will now save, and if I will now just click on the remove, so then you will see the quantity is now decrementing. And once it will reach the 1, and if I will now just decrement again, so then you will see it is now decremented from the cart also, it is now removed from the cart also. So now we have seen all of the functionalities are now working again. So then now you will see once I will click on the add to cart again, so then you will see the cart has the 2 items. Once I will click on the remove this, I will remove this, so then you will see now all of the things are now removed from the cart. So now we have built the cart functionality also into that. And now we have one more error, because now once I will click on the add to cart, so then you will see now we have the cart items at the 4, because now we have removed that items, and now you will see the cart items are only incrementing but not decrementing. So if I will now just decrement this, so now you will see the cart items are not decrementing. So for that we need to go to the cart slice, and then in the cart slice, so if we have the existing item dot quantity equals to 1, so if we have only the single quantity, then we can also just decrement the total quantity from the cart. So it will be the state dot total quantity minus minus. If I will now log in once again, I will now click on the add to cart. Now we have the 3 items onto the cart. So once I will show the cart, so then you will see now we have the MacBook of the 3 units. Once I will decrement, so then you will see now we have the 1 unit remaining, and now you will see now we have the 2 items. Once I will decrement it also, now we have the 1 item. If I will now decrement this, now we have the 1 item only onto the cart, and now you will see all of the things are now working now fine. And now we only need to fix this total price also and the logout functionality. So for the total we need to go to the layout, which we have that layout.js, and then we can just create here the total, because total is the static value. So we can just give the value as the 0. So we can grab all of the items from the state, from the Redux state, and then we can just increment the total from to their price. So it will the const items list will be equals to the use selector, and the use selector will grab the state, and the state dot cart dot items list. So then it will be having the item list. So we can just create here the items list dot for each loop, So the for each loop will contain a parameter as the item, and then it will contain the parameter then inside that also. So it will just increment that. So the item, so the total will be plus equals to the item dot, it will be the total price. So the total price will be there of the items with their quantity also. Total will be plus equals to the item dot total price. So if I will now save, and if I will now just go to the screen once again, so now we should see the total price. So now we can see the cart has the 0 items, and once I will click on the add to cart, so then you will see now we have the total of the $25. Once I will increment it, so then you will see now we have the $100 and the 4 items here. And once I will click any other item like HP Pavilion, so now you will see we have the $25 again. So now you will see all of the things are now working except the logout. So for the logout, we can create another button after the cart items for the logout functionality. So now for the logout functionality, we need to go to the header component, and then we can just create a new li after the cart. So it will be the li, and it will contain the button, and the button will contain as the logout. So then we can just style the button as well. So we can just style as the class name will be equals to like the button logout button. So then you will see we need to style the class name also, and then we need to go to the CSS, and then we need to style the CSS, so the layout.css, and then we can give as the layout button, and then we can provide it as the class name, and then we can just provide it as the padding of the 10 pixels, and then we can provide here another thing like we can provide here as the background. So the background will be oranged, and then if I will now provide here one thing as the border will be equals to the none. So now we have here, and then if I will now provide as the logout button as the hover, so the hover will contain the background. So the background will contain as the RGB 06 and the 59. So if I will now save, so then now we should see there will be a button, and then you will see we have here the logout functionality. So once I will click on the logout, so we should be logged out. So we need to go to the header.js, and then we can just provide the functionality of the on click. So the on click is here, and then we can just provide as the logout function, logout handler, and then we can just provide it as the function. Like now we can just create the function as the const logout handler, and then we can just create the dispatch functionality also. So it will the const dispatch will be equals to the use dispatch once again, and then we can just dispatch here an action of the logout of the auth slice. So it will be the dispatch, and then auth actions which we have dot logout. So it will be just logged out. So once I will click on the logout, so it will be logged out. So if I will now save, so now you will see we have here the logout button. So once I will click on the logout, so now you will see the screen is now logged out, and once I will click on the login, so now you will see we still have the cart of the 2 items onto the state. So we have covered the functionality of all of the things. So now we have built the logic, and now the only thing which is remaining is sending the shopping cart data to the backend. But we know that the reducers must be pure and side effect free and the synchronous functions always. So if we have an HTTP call which is an asynchronous task, so such type of code must not go through the reducer functions. So we can't send an HTTP request inside the reducers. We can't use any fetch and the send request from one reducer function to fetch the request, and we must never do something like this. So I strongly suggest you that don't run the asynchronous code here. So instead we have the 2 options to put the asynchronous code. The first option is inside the components with using the use effect hook, like we can do inside the product.js whenever we are sending the data to the cart. So we can add here use effect hook to send the data to the cart. And the second option is to create an action creator which would allow us to run the asynchronous code. So these are the 2 main options here, and in this course we will perform both the operation. So now we will go with the first approach, and for the backend code I will use a Firebase. So Firebase is a great tool which don't require any backend code. So we can go to the Firebase, and we can create our account here with the Firebase. So you can go with the second link, and then we can go to the go to console. So it will just log in, and it will just allow us to create a new Firebase project. So we can create a new project with a button at the create a project, and then we can add a project name, like I will add a Redux HTTP, and then I will just accept the terms and conditions, and I will just click on the continue button, and then we can just click on the continue again to enable the Google Analytics, and then the server would be same. I don't want to change, so we can click on the create project. So it will create a project within 1 minute, and then you can use the Firebase. So now the Firebase setup is now completed. So now we have to go to the product component. But now if we directly add a product from the product item component, so it would be wrong, because if we only send the data to the backend and it doesn't have any logic, and the reducer functions will be of no use then. Because if we send any single product 2 times into the backend, then the backend doesn't know that this product is already being part of the cart. So for all the logic we have in the reducer, so if the product is already part of the cart, so then we can update the quantity. So this logic won't run on the Firebase, or you have to add another functions in the Firebase to do that. You could add a server-side code to it and then the functions. So if you want to try the another solution, so the another solution is we have to let the Redux manage the state on its own, and then after the Redux manages the state, then we can update the server on the backend with the updated state from the Redux. So we can first do the work on the front end and let the Redux update the store, and second, after that we will send the request to the server. So we can do it in the main app.js file, because now then in that file we can grab the state from the Redux by creating a use selector hook. So const the whole cart state will be equals to the cart, and it will be equals to the use selector, and then it will be having a state inside it, and then we have to grab the state dot cart. So we can grab the cart state from here, and then we can just send an HTTP request from there. So we can add here the use effect after this console.log. So we have to remove this cart items because it is of no use. Then we can use here a use effect. So the use effect will then be imported from the React, and then it will be having a callback function inside it, and then it will contain an array of dependencies. So then we will add the dependency later. So then we can use an inbuilt JavaScript function, which is the fetch, to send the request to the database. So then to add here the URL, so we have to click on the continue after the project is completed, and then we need to go inside the project, and then we need to go, and then we need to click the build, and then the real-time database. So we will use the real-time database from the Firebase to use this, and then we can go, and then we can grab the URL of the real-time database. So we can click on the create database here, and then it will ask you some options. So you can just click on the next again, and then start in locked mode. So you can just enable again, and then you will see the URL will be here within a moment. So now you can see we have a URL here of the Redux. It is the REST API URL which we will be having here. So this is the URL here, and then we can just go to the rules to add the data to inside it. So we have to go to the rules, and we have to modify these rules. So read, we have to enable it to the true, and then to the write we have to get it to the true. So we have to change the read and write data here to from false to the true, and then we have to publish, and then the new rules will be published within a moment. So you can just click the dismiss here, and then we have to go to the data, and then we have to grab this URL. So we have to grab this URL, just copy the URL, and then in the fetch you have to paste this URL, and then after this slash firebase.com. So now we have to create here the collection. So the collection name will be can be the cart items .json. So .json should be always there because it helps us to add the collection there, and then we can just fetch, and then we can just specify here some object. Method of this fetch URL will be the put. So we have to send here the put data. So whenever the data will be modified into this state, so we can just add here the put request. So the Firebase could also access that modified state from the Redux. So we can just add here after the method, we have to add here the body of the request. So we have to specify the body, and it will contain a JSON object like the JSON. It will be having a stringify. So it will just stringify all the cart data into it, and then the request will be sent to the backend. And then we need to specify the cart into this array of dependencies, so that if the cart value will be changed in the Redux, so the use effect will be notified, and then we can just run the fetch function, and then it will update the data there. So if I will now save, and if I will now go to the Redux app, if I will now just refresh, and then we will start from the scratch. So now we are logged in. So if I will add any product to the database like MacBook, if I will click on the add to cart, so now you will see the cart has 1 item. And if I will add the Lenovo Yoga also, now the cart has 2 items. So if I will now go to the real-time database, now you will see we have a collection of the cart items. So if you will expand, now you will see we have the total quantity of 2 and the show card which is equals to the true, and then we have the items list inside that. So then you will see we have a array. So the 0 index of the array have the MacBook which is of the price and the quantity is 1 and the total price is 25. And then we have the first array which contains a Lenovo Yoga laptop. The price is 25 and the total price is also 25. So now you will see the put request is working, and now the Firebase is now able to access the latest state snapshot from the Redux that we have. So whenever the data will be changed inside the Redux slices, Redux reducers, so the use effect will be modified and it will send the request to the Redux by the HTTP. So now I'm sending this request, but I'm not doing anything with the response which I will get from the server. So I'm not handling any type of potential errors that could occur during this fetch function. So we will create a notification component so that we should be notified about the errors and the states of the Redux, that how and when the Redux state is updated. So first we have to convert this fetch function into the asynchronous function. So we have to declare the function here inside the use effect at the send request, and it will be equals to the function, and it will be the async function and the arrow function. And then we have to just create a new variable here as the const response, which we will get by doing the await and then by updating the state from the Redux to the Firebase. So now we will just await for the fetch function to run, and then we will create a new data variable. So whenever the response will be successful, we will just convert the response to the JSON format whenever we will get from the server, and this will also be the await, so that it should take some time. And then now whenever we will reach the data here, so it means that now the response is successful and now we should see the data in the backend. So now we will call the send request function. So we have to create a notification component, and then we have to create the slice and the new state for the notification to handle all of the state from the UI. So now we have to go and we have to create the notification component with the notification.js, and I will add a basic setup here for that. So now we have to go to the material UI. So you have to go and type the material UI into the browser, and you have to install the material UI library from the React. So you have to copy this command and you have to paste this command inside the terminal, and you have to install this material UI. So we have to wait till it completes the installation, and then we will continue. And now the material UI is installed, and now we have to import something from the material UI, which will be the alert. So we will show the alert box from the material UI, and it will be imported from the MUI material instead of the notification. Then we have to add here the alert to the alert, and then it will contain 2 props at the severity, and it will be equals to the dynamic severity. So we will get the 2 props here as the type, and then the message we want to show, and then it will contain a message here also inside the alert. It will be the message. So now we have created the alert box. So now we have to go to the app.js, and then we have to add here the notification. So then it will be imported, and then we can just provide here the type prop, and the type will be equals to the success. This is a static, and then it will be converted to the dynamic into the notification, and then we can add here the message will be equals to, like, it will be the, like, this is dummy message. So if I will now save, and if I will now just get the notification also, so it will be imported. So if I will now save, so then we should see the notification onto the screen. So now it is compiled. So if I will now go to the React Redux app, so then you will see there is a dummy message onto the screen, which is a notification component. So now you will see we have a notification, and now we need to handle all of the states of the notification into the Redux. So we will create a new slice into the Redux. So it will be the UI slice. So it will be the UI slice.js, and then we have to create a new slice for the UI. So it will be the const UI slice will be equals to the create slice, and the create slice will then be imported from the Redux. So first we will provide here the name. So the name will be equals to the UI slice, and then we will just create the initial state. So initial state will be having an object with the notification inside that, and the notification by default value will be equals to the null. And then we will just create here the reducer functions to add some data inside it. So first it will contain a function at the show notification. So the show notification function will contain the state as the parameters, and then it will contain the action. So then we will just add the action.payload property into the notification object, and then it will show the notification into the app.js. So then we will add here as a state dot notification will be equals to an object, and then it will contain the message will be equals to the action dot payload dot message, and then it will be having a new thing as the type. So the type will be equals to the action dot payload dot type, and then it will have a open prop. So whenever we need to open the notification, so we have to add here the open. So the action dot payload dot open. So now these three things will be now there into the show notification. So whenever these three things will be there, so the notification will be shown. So then we need to just export here the actions of the UI slice. Goes to the UI slice dot actions, and then we need to just export this const variable, and then we need to just export the UI slice now as the default export. So it will export default as the UI slice. So now we need to go to the index.js into the store, and then we need to add here the UI slice also as the UI, and it will contain the UI slice dot it will contain the reducer. So now we have given the UI slice onto the Redux store, so then we can use the store also. And now we need to go to the app.js to handle the state. So now we have to use the dispatch into the app.function. So whenever we will reach the send request function, we will send the state as sending request, and then we will just go whenever we will get the data. So then we will send a new state as the send state to notification as now the request is successful. And whenever we will get an error from the request, so we will use the send request dot catch. It will have the error inside that, so we will just add here a new dispatch function inside that, and here we will just dispatch a new action as now we have now error. So send state as error. So now we have the three dispatch functions will be here. So now we have to use the dispatch function. So we have to create a const dispatch will be equals to the use dispatch, and it will be from the React Redux. So it will be imported from the React Redux as you can see, and then we can just dispatch here an action. So whenever we are sending the request, so it should be the dispatch, and then we have to get the UI actions which we have imported. So it will also be imported from the store and the UI slice. So the UI actions dot show notification, and now it will contain an object. So first property will be equals to the open, so we have to set the open property now equals to the true, and then we have to set here the message. So the message property will be equals to now as the it will contain like the sending request, and now it will contain a type of the alert box in the material UI which needs to be specified, which will be equals to the warning, and the type should be of the same spelling here because it is used in the material UI as the static strings. So then we are now dispatching the actions at the show notification. So type equals to the warning. So whenever the response will be converted to the JSON, so then we have to use another dispatch, and then we have to get here open true, and then we have to set the message at the sent request to database successfully, and then the type will be equals to success from the material UI. And then whenever we will get an error from the send request function, so we will catch an error, and then we will throw a new dispatch function here again. So the dispatch will be having a open true, the message will be the sending request failed, and the type will be equals to the error. So if I will now save, so now we should see all of the things here, but now we need to convert all of the type equal to success and the message to the dynamically. So then we need to just add here the use selector hook. So const, and it will be having a notification will be equals to the use selector. So we will get the notification from the state, and then the state dot UI dot notification, and then we will send all of the data dynamically through this object. So it will be having a type will be equals to like we have to get here the type as the notification dot type, and then in the message we have to get here as the instead of this we will get the notification dot message, and the open prop should always be in the notification state. So we have to go to the notification, and then we have to get if the state is now open, and then only we need to show the notification. So for that we will create a use selector hook as the const open will be equals to the use selector hook again, and it will be having a state as the parameter as the callback. So we will get the state dot UI dot notification. So we can only get the notification here because we have to get the notification. So sometimes it would be undefined, so we have to check all of the errors. So it will be the notification, and it will be equals to state.ui.notification, and then we will check whenever we will have the notification inside that. So it will be having that. So whenever the notification dot open is true, and then only we need to show the alert. And then we will add one more thing to the alert, so it will the on close. So whenever it will be closed, so then it should be having a function as the handle close. So then we will get the handle close. So it will be having a const handle close will be equal to the function. So the handle close will now contain a new dispatch again. So we have to get the dispatch from the use selector. So const dispatch will be equals to the use dispatch from the React Redux, and then we need to dispatch an action whenever we are now closing the alert box, and then we need to set the open to the false. We need to set the open property of the UI slice to the false, so that, and it should not overlap the content of the state. So we have to get here as the open, so it is showing as the open, so we have to fix this also. So then we need to go to the notification again, and then we need to set here the UI actions again. UI actions will be equals to the UI actions dot show notification. We only need to set here the prop, the open, which will be equals to the false. So if I will now save, and if I will now just go to the app.js now to handle the things. So now we need to go to the app.js, and then we have to check. So when we would be having the notification into the state, and then only we have to show the notification. So if I will now save, so now you will see alert is showing initially because the use effect is running on the first render as well. So to fix it, we have to just stop it from the rendering for the first time, and then we can create a variable before the component function to check if it is the first render, and then we need to stop the use effect from rendering. So we can create a variable is first render will be equals to like the true, and then we can just go to the use effect, and then we can just check a condition like if it is the first render, we need to just set the is first render will be equals to now the false. So now the first render is false, and then we need to just add here the return. So whenever it will be the first render, so it will be returned. So if I will now save, now you will see whenever I will now refresh, so now you will see it will not show initially, and once I will click on the login, and now you will see the application is now working fine. So now you will see now the Redux state has empty items. So now you will see the array is empty. So we have to check if the array is still there or not. So then you will see now we don't have anything inside that. So if I will now just add something to the cart, add to cart, so then you will see the sending request is there, and then you will see the now the request is sent successfully to the database. And once I will go to the database, so then you will see the cart items is there, and we have the quantity equals to the 1, and we have the first item in the array. And if I will now click on one more item to there, so add to cart, so then you will see sending request, the notification is showing, and then you will see the notification is now completed, send request to database successfully. So then you will see now we have total quantity 2, and now we have one more array in the database. So now we have completed functionality of the notification icons, and now we are missing one thing, and now we need to fetch the data from the Firebase. But before we start fetching the data, let's have a look at the alternative solution that we have discussed, which is the other option, which is the action creator. So now even the dispatch is an action creator which sends an action. Now we can write our own action creators as well, which is known as the thunks. So what is a thunk? But a thunk is a function that delays an action until later, and we can write an action creator as thunk, which does not immediately returns the action object, but which returns another function which returns the action. So we can run the other code before we dispatch the actual action object, and it is very common pattern in the Redux. Now we will see how we can achieve that. So we need to go to the cart slice, and then we need to create here after the reducers. Now we need to create here the function like the send cart data. Now the send cart data will be equals to the function which will receive a parameter as the cart. Now we will see from where we will call that, but now we will just stick to the implementation of this send cart data, and then it returns the another function as we have discussed, which contains a dispatch as the parameters, and then we will just dispatch another action. So this will return another function inside that. And now we have to go to the app.js which we have, and now if I will now just grab this action objects, like this will be equals to dispatch. So I will now dispatch this action. If I will now cut from here, and if I will now go to the cart slice, and then if I will now just add the dispatch here, and then you will see we have a UI actions, then we have to grab the UI action and we have to import that. And now you will see now we are dispatching first the notification icon, which is the sending request, and then we will go to the app.js once again, and if I will now just catch the send request function also, from there. So we have to get this function. I will grab this function from there to dispatch. So I will now just copy this function, and if I will now just cut this here, and if I will now just paste to the card slice, and now we need to call the send request function with the try catch block, like will be the try, and then it will be the await, and then it will be the send request. So it will be the send request. So now we are now using here the await, so, and it can be a async function also. So now it is now await, and now after this we will now add here the catch block, which will catch an error, and then instead of catching the error, now we will go to the app.js once again, and I will now grab the UI actions dot show notification also if we have seen an error. So I will now grab this, and if I will now just go to the card slice once again, I will now dispatch the action with the error from here. So now we have implemented the send card data function to there, and now we will see from where we will call, and now we need to export this data, export this function, the send card data, and now we need to go to the app.js, and I will now just clean everything from there, from the send request, and now we need to call here the send cart request data, send cart data here, and then it will be having a cart as the parameter, and then we need to provide the cart parameter there, and now we are now sending the data, and now this is a thunk and the action creator, so we need to dispatch it. So we need to add it inside the dispatch, so it will be a dispatch, and now we are now dispatching the send cart data function, and we are now adding the cart inside that. So now this will be the function which will be using the dispatch and the send cart data. So if I will now save, and if I will now just go to the Chrome once again to check if everything is working fine. So now we are in the React Redux app. If I will now just refresh, now you will see now we have a login screen. If I will now click on the login, and if I will now click on the add to cart, so now you will see we have a sending request notification, and then it should be successful. So now you will see the notification is successful, and if I will now just go to the Firebase, you can see we have the item list, and we have one data into the item list. So now you will see everything is fine now, and if I will now click on the add to cart once again, so then you will see the request should be successful, and then we should go to the Firebase, and now you will see we have a one more item into the list. And now what we are doing here, now we are sending here the dispatch like this, and we are adding a send cart data, which is a thunk function in the Redux, and we are adding a cart as the parameter, which we will receive from the cart from the use selector. And now the Redux will go ahead and it will dispatch this function for us, and all other functions will be dispatched inside the send cart data function. Now we have so many functions inside that, and our HTTP request will also be performed, and this pattern may look complicated, but it is a supported pattern by the Redux, and it is known as the Thunk pattern. And why we had this, because this is an alternative that we should have the logics and all of the data and the action creators inside the Redux only. And the most important, you can stick to the previous pattern as well if you found it good, but it's a good idea to keep your components clean and just only have all of the logics and the side effect logics inside the Redux. And now you have seen about the thunk function. So now let's build another action creator to fetch the data from the Firebase, to fetch all of the cart data from the Firebase. So now if I will now go to the cart slice once again, if I will now just grab this, so now you will see we have a cart slice, and now we have a cart slice send cart data function which is now exporting. So now to make this file cleaner, so I will now cut this file, and if I will now create another file as the cart dash actions.js, I will now add this function into this cart. So then you will see now I have pasted this function into this cart. So then we need to import the UI actions also to make that file cleaner. So now we have seen this function, and now we need to create a one more function to fetch the request from the Firebase, and to fetch all of the data from the Firebase, and to just update to the front end. And for that we need to create another action creator thunk. So it will be like the export, it will be exported, and the const at the fetch data, which will be equals to like the function, and then we need to add here the function inside that, and then we need to just return here another function inside that as we have did in the previous video also. So it will be called dispatch, and it will be equals to an arrow function once again, and this will also be the async function because we are now fetching the request from the Firebase. So now we can create a new request to fetch the data, and for that I will create a function as the fetch handler inside that, and it will be the function to fetch the data inside that. So it will be the asynchronous function, and then we will create a one more variable with the function to fetch the request like response, and response we will get from the Firebase from the await, and then we have to fetch the request. So there is a function with the fetch, and then we need to add the URL inside that. So we can grab this URL from the http till the cart.json, and this will be a get request, so we don't need to specify the method here inside that. And then we can just get the data, as the const data will be equals to the await. So once the request will be successful, so we will get the response, and then we will convert the response to the JSON. So now we have the data inside the data variable, and then we will return the data. So the data will be now returned, and now we need to call this function. So we can call this function inside the try catch block because this is a promise. So we can just get the const card data will be equals to await, and then the fetch handler. So the fetch handler function will return the data, and now we have the data. And now we need to create a one more reducer function in the cart slice to get the data and to update the data onto the Redux and the front end also. So for that I will add here another function here, as like in the reducers I will add a one more function as the replace data. So the data on the front end, because now initially the data would be empty, so we can just replace the empty data with the data we have in the Firebase to update the content of the cart. So it will be equals to the state dot total quantity will be equals to the action dot payload which we will receive. So it will receive two properties, and the state and the action. So the action dot payload will be there, and then action dot payload dot total price, it will be updated from the Firebase, and then it will get the item list also. Item list will be equals to the action dot payload dot item list that we have. And now the replace cart data, now we need to call this function replace data inside that. So whenever we will send the request to the data, now we will dispatch a one more function as the cart actions. So we need to import cart actions dot replace data. So the replace data would be there, and then we need to replace the data with the cart data which we have. So it will replace all of the data with the cart data which we have in the Firebase, and it will reflect onto the front end. And now we will add a catch block here also to catch an error if we have an error. So it will show as an error, and then we can just add here one more thing. So we can add here a new dispatch action as the UI.error. So it should show us the error onto the screen. So inside the catch block we will add this error, and this will like sending request, it should show us the error. And now the thing is, now we have created the function, and now here we want to call it. And to call this function we need to go to the app.js that we have, and in the app.js we need to create another use effect to call this. And this use effect will run initially as well, as we have stopped the another use effect to don't run initially. And then it will be having a fetch data, so we have to get here the dispatch function. We have to dispatch here. So whenever we will get the request, whenever the application will be opened, so we need to dispatch an action, and then we need to fetch the data from the Firebase. So the fetch data will be imported from the actions, from the cart actions. So then you will see cart actions, it will be imported, and then it should show us all of the things. And then now you will see in the array of dependencies we can add a dispatch function where we have. And now we will see, now we have moved the send cart data into the cart actions as well. So I will now remove from here, and I will now just import the send cart data from the cart actions as well. So now you will see the send cart data, and the all of the things are now imported from the correct place. So if I will now save, and if I will now go to the screen, so it should not show us an error. So now you will see it is showing us an error. It is not an error, but this is the initial request. So whenever we are opening the application, it is sending the request to the database, and when the first render is complete, then the second render is then completing. So then you will see the sending cart data is now sending again and again the data to the user, to the Firebase. So whenever this request will be successful, whenever the application will be opened, so this request will be run, and after that then the second render will be true, and then we will send this request there. So we have to stop this because this is a problem. And now to solve this, now we need to go to the cart slice, and then now we can add a new parameter here as the changed. So it will be equals to the changed will be equals to the false, and then the change will be equals to the false. So we can check whenever the data will be changed, and then only we need to run this render, and then only we need to send the request to the database. So then you will see, once we will go to the add to cart, so then you will see the state. So the state will now be changed. So when it will reach the add to cart, the stage will be changed to true, and then once it will reach to the remove to cart as well, so the state will be changed as well from here also, stage.end equals to the true. So now we need to check that inside the app.js also. So once we will go to the app.js, and then we can check, we have to send cart data only when we have a condition. So we can check a condition via if statement, like if we have the cart and then if the card dot change equals to the true, and then only we need to send this dispatch request. So if I will now copy and if I will now just paste inside that, so if I will now save with all of that, and I should see the server should be okay. So then you will see now we have the application. Now initially we don't see any request, and once I will click on the login, and now you will see we have the cart of the one items as well into the Firebase, also into here also. And now this means that now we have completed the full Redux functionality into this application, and now we are also fetching the card data from the Firebase as well. And once I will click on the add to card, now you will see the sending request to database successfully. We can close this notification, and I will add one more item. Now you will see now we have 3 items inside that. And once I will go to the Redux Firebase, now you will see we have the all of the items in the item list. We have the quantity of 3, and now we have all of the items inside that. So now we have completed the full Redux course, and I hope you have learned a lot from this course. And there can be some optimizations as well, so you can just move the change property and the show card property to the UI slice as well, and it should be the assignment for you, so you can do that. So now we have completed 2 applications with the Redux. The first one is a basic counter application, and the second one is a bigger project with a shopping cart application. So now I hope you have learned the Redux, then what is the Redux, why we need it, and how can we make use of it in the real world applications, and how can we run asynchronous tasks with the Redux. So if you have any doubts or you are facing any issues, so connect with me and I will help you out. And I have added the source code also into the description, so you can take help from that also. So thanks for watching, and if you learned something new from me, then do me a favor, like this video and please subscribe to the channel so I can create more videos like that. So thank you, have a nice day.